What will this big of a bond do to benefit our district?
Well, the school district is 73 square miles, and we have 26 schools. And so we have schools that date back to the 1930s and 1950s, and we have schools that have been built just a few years ago. And so what we did is went in and all those facilities, and the bond steering committee reviewed the needs of those various facilities to determine what the needs are. And so in the end, they made a recommendation that impacts every facility in the district, and it's at various levels depending on the needs of the building and how old it is. And so it ends up affecting the whole school district. One thing that the committee looked at is they looked at all the needs. This bond is not a inclusive list of everything that was stated. It was a list in which the committee actually had to prioritize the needs. And one of the areas that they looked at was safety and security. And so in that plan was one to replace virtually all the cameras in the school district to bring a standard across the 26 schools, but also to put in secured vestibules in our facilities that do not have them. Most of our schools have a vestibule where when you go into the building, you're compelled to go into the front office before you have access. There are a few, however, that have access. Of course, we monitor that, but we'd like to have another set of doors to be able to compel you to go into the office area. For some, it's very simple, our elementary schools. For the middle schools, it can be more complicated. So, for example, Creekview Middle School and Highland Middle School, the offices are in the center. So we would actually renovate these and move to the offices to the outside and move the library into the inside. So that's a safety security area. The other is to look at any kind of facility improvements. So you'll see PA systems updated, you'll see lighting systems updated, heating air conditioning systems updated. That actually has a return on investment in terms of savings on electrical energy. So there is each campus, we really looked at the individual needs of that campus, but also trying to provide a level of standard across the school district to make us more efficient.
So in this bond, what will, like I heard that there are athletic renovations for Saginaw and Boswell. What do those include?
Best way to think about it is that we have a standard we set with Chisholm Trail High School. That is the size of the facilities in terms of the locker rooms, the weight rooms, the gymnasiums, etc. And so that became our new standard. And when we look at high school number 4, which we would be building in 2024 perhaps, that would also meet that same standard. And so the intent of this is to go back into Saginaw and Boswell and to bring them up to the same standard. They won't look exactly the same, but would have equitable facilities in terms of locker room space and gymnasiums, etc. And so if you look at Boswell was built in the early 60s, and so it has a different set of needs than Saginaw High School, which was built in the mid-2000s. And so you have in both facilities a review of what those needs are to, again, bring up to the standard of Chisholm Trail. What that looks like at Boswell is a locker room space, some weight room space, the indoor activity center, which is dated back again for a number of years. At Saginaw, the renovation is in the field house area near the stadium. That would increase the locker room space and the weight room as well.
Right. So how can a $525 million bond not have an impact on taxpayers?
It doesn't impact the tax rate, and it does impact in terms of the debt the school district would have. And so we would issue more debt, and that's more debt the taxpayers would ultimately be responsible for. But what it doesn't impact is the tax rate. And the reason why is basically a simple formula. The tax rate is built upon those taxes we collect based upon what we said is the rate, which is also based on the property values. And property values change for a couple of reasons. One, they change just normal inflation that occurs. The cost of a home 20 years ago is much less than it would be now, and we look out 20 years, it's going to be much more expensive, which means it will generate more taxes for those homes. The big one in our area, however, is developed versus undeveloped land. As you drive through the school district, you see a lot of undeveloped land where people have ranches and other kinds of ag property. And when that converts into homes and becomes single-family residences or apartments, the value of that is exponentially more than it is when it's undeveloped. All that generates new taxes, but it's circular. So, for example, you have a ranch that turns into homes. Well, those homes bring children. Children have needs for schools and teachers, and so there's costs. So basically you kind of stay even, if you will, because about the time that you have the revenue from the new homes, you also have the students that come with them. The other area is the school district has done a very effective job of restructuring its debt. We've had 9 refinancings that have produced about $75 million in savings for the school district and for taxpayers, and that $75 million was put back into the tax plan. One of the questions that's asked of me sometimes is, they say, well, if the school district, they may not raise the tax rate, but certainly if they don't pass the bond, they'll lower it. That's actually not accurate. We would not lower the tax rate. We haven't in the past, and the reason why is we pay down debt. So think of it in our own lives. Say, for example, you received $10,000, and with that $10,000, you could either spend it on something that you want, that you've been wanting, or you could pay down debt. So, or you could just leave it in the bank. The idea here is that if we weren't going to spend this tax rate on something new, the bond program, then we would spend it to pay down our debt, which is what we've done in the past. We would use all those dollars to pay down those things that we already owe in terms of the bonded indebtedness.
Okay, so who and when can we vote?
Well, anyone that's 18 years or older that is a registered voter in Eagle Mountain Saginaw ISD. And early voting starts on October the 23rd and extends through November the 3rd. The local voting, we have a polling place at Building 6, which is at the administration building. On November the 7th is Election Day, and people will vote in their local precinct at that time. So we really encourage people to register to vote and be active in that process.
Right. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.